Hello. So, I did the pillow and I did it, what I'm talking about right now is the borders, the patriotic borders. So I went ahead and I did do them. This is my second time around. I did do them as per the instructions. And as per the instructions, what they want you to do, hang on one second, let me just rotate this, is they want you to pick your size. This is the size that I did. I did this size and I did this size. The 3" by the 12" for the piece border. And then the 1" by 12". Those were the file names that I had chosen. The process was to hoop just your stabilizer, then put your batting down, do the placement line, batting down, trim, and then the stitch line for the fabric and put the fabric down and then do the quilting. So I gotta be honest with you, I thought it was really, really time consuming and time intensive. And the whole time I was doing it, I kept thinking, I think we could do this faster, in a different way. I don't necessarily think this is a better way. I think it's a faster way. I actually also, my placement I thought wasn't so perfect, and I couldn't really change my sizing the way I wanted to. So with this, what I'm going to do is, number one, I am using let me see if I can turn this here. This is my 10.5" by 16" snap hoop. I am not using the hoop that came with the machine because, to be honest with you, I feel like that hoop, I just can't get it ever tight enough. Once you get it tight enough, it bows on the side. So I'm going to be using, this here is my, my snap hoop. I laid down a piece of muslin, and that's what I'm using as my stabilizer, but you could put down some no-show mesh. And then on top of that, I have a piece of batting. So I'm making my sandwich. I'm creating my sandwich right now all at once, instead of placement line, batting, trim the batting, placement line, backing, or the border pieces. So here's my batting. I'm just using Hobbs 80/20. And then these are my piece border pieces. And I know some of these don't look perfect because I was literally using the very last of my scraps. So, because I'm doing this for the second time again. So you want to lay this down as straight as possible and push it down too. So this one I think was a little crooked. So I'm going to lay it down one more time. Let's see if I can get this down. And instead of doing this in, what was that, 6 hoopings, I'm going to be doing this in 3 hoopings. So, and I'm just going to try and get this straighter. And I'm just going to push it down. And the reason I'm doing that is because when you do your, and I can tell that's a little bit crooked. When we go to scan this, when I go to scan it on my machine, the scanner doesn't take into consideration that your fabric might be a little bit higher in some spots and lower in some spots. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And I think we should be good. Maybe I'll just move this over like here. And now we're going to go over to the machine and I'm going to put it in there. So again, my muslin was big enough to hoop. My pieces I put on top of the batting. I smoothed it down, and now we're going to go ahead to the machine and we're going to load the designs. So what I found when I did these designs is they weren't quite long enough. And so I think this is going to help me actually make my design fit a little bit better. The design I'm going to be using is the 1 by 12", and that's going to be in the sashing, but it's longer than 12 inches. So I'm going to be stretching it a little bit. And I'm also going to be using the 3" by 12", which is right here. So when we go to do this design, I'm going to be placing it, but instead of doing all of these parts right here, so doing this, the placement, the trimming, the only thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be stitching the embroidery, and that's it. I'm just going to be stitching the quilting design. So let me go ahead and show you how we're going to load this. So go ahead and go to embroidery, your pocket, your USB, if you're on the Luminaire and the Solaris, and we're doing the border patriotic. And I'm going to pull that in. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my 1 inch by 12 inch. So you've got to look at this because if you look at this, this has a 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides. Mine's already sewn together here and it's sewn together there. So I'm going to take that 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to take that into account when I go to place this. So I'm going to go ahead and load this one right here. And I'm going to have to rotate it a little bit. So I'm going to go to my edit function and rotate it. Let's try 1 degree. Actually, 1 is absolutely perfect. And I'm going to move this over to the right. So that 1/4 inch seam allowance is going to be right on the line. And I feel like I need to rotate a little bit more. 1 degree is going to be too much, so I'm just going to hit the 0.1 degree a couple of times, and that looks perfect. Okay, next thing I have to do, so you see how I have that seam allowance going over into the piece border. Next thing I want to do is I want to make this longer. So I'm going to extend it so that this part right here, this line, is even with this piece line. And I'm going to make this one even with the top. It might get stitched in a little bit, but I want it to be a little bit longer. So I'm going to go ahead and hit edit again. I'm going to go to size and I'm just going to stretch it. So I'm just going to hit this button and just stretch it. Now I'm going to have to move it down. And let me stretch it one more. Might have to move it just up. Up one more. Perfect. That looks perfect to me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to make a copy of that. I could go through and add, but I could just make a copy. I'm not going to move this with my finger because I might move the design under here. So I'm going to go back to my move arrows. Once I get it off of the other one, now I can go ahead and move it with my finger. And I am going to get that right over the edge. Okay, I use my finger for general placement, and then I'll use my arrows for precision placement. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate that a little bit to the right. And, you know, it just looks like my line isn't totally straight, but that's okay. I'm going to move it up a little bit. And I just want it to be even right here with that piece block. That looks good. And I'm going to move it over to the right a little bit. Or you know what? Let's move it over this way. I'm going to kind of see if I can get that a little bit more straightened out. So I'm going to kind of depend on this line and this line. And I think I might go over a little bit. So let's move it to the left a little bit. I don't want this stitching to go off. And that looks really good to me. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load the next design, which is this one here, my 3x12. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. This time I am going to hit add and pocket, USB, patriotic border, PES, and I'm looking for the 3x12. I tried the 3x14. It was a little bit too big, so I think it's better to go 3x12 and stretch it a little bit. I guess you can go either way, right? So I'm going to go ahead and move this one first. And remember, that design, there's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to hit edit. I'm going to rotate it. And let's go 1 degree. That looks pretty good. So you can look at 2 things. Number 1, the right line should be even with the edge of your piece border. And it's a little hard to see with, let me see if I can increase my contrast. I'm just going to go ahead and make that a little bit darker. And shoot. Did you know if you hit that, it centers it, the little circle? So reset it. Whoops. So I don't know if you can see it, but I've got like a yellow line. I'm going to try and get that on the seam. I'm going to rotate it one. It's a little bit too much. So I can see the yellow line like right down here. I'm going to move it up too. And I'm going to have to stretch it. Let's see where that yellow line is. There it is. Okay. Let's move it back over. And I can't see it, so I'm going to say okay. Let's size it. I'm going to stretch it a little bit. I'm going to go up. That looks good. I think we're good. Design looks good. I'm going to actually rotate it one more to the right. And I think that looks perfect. Great. So now I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to make a copy because I know it's already the length it should be. And I'm going to go to move. And instead of moving it with my finger, because you might move the one under it, use your move arrows. I'm going to take this one all the way over to the right because I don't want to move the skinny sashing piece either. So the reason I'm doing this is because we have 9 of these blocks total. So I'm just going to do 3 at a time and then these, and then we'll unhoop, we'll rehoop and do the middle 3. We'll unhoop and redo the bottom 3. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this, move it over a little bit. Trying to get that yellow line all the way over. That may be a little too much. I can see it down here, so I'm going to move it over some more. And I want to move this so it's even with the navy lattice design. I'm going to rotate it a little bit. It's too far over. There we go. And that looks pretty perfect. Looks great. So that looks good. I am going to go in here and say okay. I'm going to say embroidery. I'm going to color group, layout, and let's color group. Function can't be used when patterns are overlapping. So I have some patterns overlapping. That's okay. I'm just going to fast forward and I'm going to just stitch the very last stitch. Let me put in my red variegated thread. So I'm going to be using this thread, which I love. It is Mirage SD40 and it is variegated red, white, and blue, and it's going to look amazing. So let me go ahead and put that thread on. If you use Mirage, you need to be sure to use a 9014 needle because it is a 30 weight thread, which means it's heavier. It's heavier than regular embroidery thread. And just go up a size in your needle. I use a 9014 when I'm using heavy thread or if I'm going through a lot of fabric, so you should probably be using a 9014 anyways. Going through all this fabric. So let me show you how to fast forward through all of this. Okay, so we're gonna make sure that shows me the picture right here. I'm gonna hit this button down here, and I'm just gonna look at what's here because I just want to go to where it does the quilting. Oh, there's my quilting. Sorry. Got all excited and bypassed it. Okay, now the other thing that I want to do is anytime you are quilting, you want to bring up your bobbin thread. So I'm going to go ahead and that's just so it doesn't, actually, you know what? Scratch that. You want to bring up your bobbin thread if you're going to see the back. But this is going to be inside the pillow. So I'm just going to hold it and I'm just going to start. I'm not going to worry about that bobbin thread. I am going to worry about it stitching over the edge though. So I'm going to watch it a little bit just to make sure it doesn't catch anything. Straighten out my camera. Looks amazing already. Actually, it doesn't look amazing. I'm seeing some of my bobbin thread. So hang on a second. I'm going to go back 10 stitches and let's start again. And what I did was I didn't realize, but I had a variegated bobbin in there from something I was stitching before. And I changed that out. And now it looks absolutely amazing. I'm just going to leave it because I don't want it to be too thick. But if it doesn't look good, stop your machine, check your bobbin, life lessons. And so much better. And it looks fantastic now. Okay, I can't tell you how much time this is saving. So now what I'm going to do is same thing. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward. There we go. Here's the quilting. Okay. Let me come over here. I'm going to go ahead and hit okay. Let's make sure it doesn't get caught. And we're off. And now it looks absolutely perfect. So all I did is I put a regular Quiltech pre-wound bobbin back in. That's what I really like to stitch with. I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to fast forward. There we go. And here we go. I am going to just start. Now, like I said, if this was a quilt top and the quilting was going to be seen on the quilt back, I would be bringing up that bobbin thread. Now the only negative about this is when I go to trim it down, there is a little bit of batting that's going to get sewn in, but I'm not too worried about it. I feel like Hobbs is so, it's lofty, so it's not going to make a difference. It's just one layer because the other side's been cut. That looks so good. So when I did it the other way, I can't remember how long it took me, but I think it took me 3 or 4 hours. This, I think, will take me maybe an hour, the quilting. Hour tops. Maybe an hour and a half with all the placing. But still, that's way better than 3 to 4 hours. And my spacing wasn't as good on mine, on the one that I did where I did each design separately. The spacing on this looks way better. I think with my next one, I might move this in a little bit more because this might get sewn in this 1/4 inch right here. So I'm going to pay attention to that too. Here we go. Let's go ahead and fast forward through this. Whoops, wrong way. There we go. And we could take these designs and we can mirror image them if we want. Okay, let's unhoop and let's rehoop. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull off my top hoop. And let's pull it out this way. All right. Let's see if you can see it better that way. I'm going to go ahead and lay this down again. And I just want to see where our stitching is going to start. Get this out of the way. I'm going to move this up, probably about there. I could just take my top hoop and put it down on top of all of this. Let me straighten out. This is where my dog chewed my batting. He loves to rip up my batting. He's so naughty. Just smooth this out. See if I can get it nice and smooth. Let's try and I'm going to get this a little straighter. Hope my big head wasn't in the way that whole time. I can just put my top hoop on top of all the layers. Okay, let's move this down a bit. Maybe doing 1, 2, 3. Let's move it up a little bit this way. Here we go. Let's lay it down. And just take this and pull. Am I in the way? Can't tell if I'm like in the way. I like to walk my hands around, pull out any of the little bubbles, but you don't want to pull too hard because you don't want to distort the weave. But that is nice and flat. Hope I wasn't in the way that whole time. Okay, I'm going to take this back over to my machine. You can always manipulate it a little bit if you need to, but let's go ahead and slide it back onto the machine. So what if you don't have a camera on your machine? Well, then you're going to have to go ahead and you will have to do it the traditional, the way that Kimberbell has it in the instructions. And it's genius and it's fantastic. And it's amazing that you can do your quilting that way. However, if you do have a camera, then I hope you consider doing it this way because I think it will save you time. And I think it'll be more accurate and I think you'll get a better end result. So first thing I'm going to do now that I'm hooped, I'm going to go ahead and take another scan. So I'm going to go ahead here and go to camera. So I'm going to turn my background image off, or it's already off. It goes away. I could turn it back on, but this would be my image from last time, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to go off. I'm going to hit scan. If you have a machine with a camera that predates the Luminaire, Then what you're going to have to do is you have to go into your settings to get rid of your scan if you didn't stitch out. If you stitched out, it will get rid of your scan for you. So we're going to do these 3 blocks. I'm going to do this one, and this one. I'm going to do the navy blue, the polka dot, and the striped one. I don't want to put my hand in front because it's taking a picture and it will take a picture of your hand. Here we go. So your designs are already there. We're just going to have to move them to the appropriate spot. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll leave my contrast the way it is. Right now I'm going to do this one first. So this one. And you know what? I do have to hit return. So because I can't, if I'm on my embroidery page, my layout page, when I move the design, it moves everything all together. If I want to move them individually, I have to go to my main edit page. So that's where I am right now. So, and again, what that means is if I hit embroidery and I move my design here, everything's going to move. See how everything moved? Okay. So I'm going to hit return to go to my main edit page. And now I'm going to place everything individually. Now everything will move separately. Okay, so this, I need to move down to here. I'm going to rotate it 1 degree. Perfect. Let me move it down a little bit. So I'm moving the far left one right now. And I want to pay attention to where my design is, and I want to be close to that line, but not over it. Like that snowflake is really close right there. And I just want to be away from here because of that, the 1/4 inch. Okay, I'm going to do this one now. This was a little too far over for my liking. So I'm going to move it with my finger first. Whoops, that's a little too much. I'm kind of looking down here. Let's give it a 1 degree, 1 over. Okay. I wanted to make sure I'm not too close to this right side. I was a little bit close. I'm just going to tuck this in over to the left. That looks good. The star is good. Everything looks good. I'm going to move it over a little bit more. And that looks good to me. As you stitch, it pulls your fabric in. So I'd rather have it be a little bit closer over there than this side. And I'm checking that star to see how close it is to the red. This little swirl here, everything looks good. Okay, I'm going to do this one now. The long skinny one. That was way too far over. Whoops. And let's go ahead and go 1 degree this way. I'm checking all my points here. That one's a little bit far. Sorry, I can't see around my camera. That is way too far over. It's that one snowflake up there. Everything else looks good. I'm going to leave it like that. Okay, I'm going to do this one right now. And was that far down enough? I'm going to move it down a little bit. Let me do this one. Move that over to the left. I'm going to rotate it 1 degree this way. I'm moving it down right here where I can see it. And I'm going to check all of these to make sure they're far left. The one that was really the closest was, I feel like it was this swirl right here. So we're good there. I'm going to move it 1 more click to the left and we're ready to stitch. All right. How quick was that? I'm going to hit embroidery. And again, we have to fast forward. So I'm going to hit this button. 1, 2, 3. So it's the green. So when you get to the one that's green, that's where you're going to start stitching. And let's hit start. To tickle my fabric. So we're at 31 minutes and about 31 minutes, but I can't remember if I had another video before this one. I think I did. I'm guessing this is going to take us an hour and a half, which is way better. Like I said, way better than the 3 to 4 hours that it took me to do it the other way. So I'm going to fast forward until I get to the green. It's after the yellow. There it is. And I could have mirrored imaged it too. Okay. Fast forward. There we go. Now, if you don't have a 10.5 by 16-inch snap hoop, you can still do this in your, you can still do this in a 9.5 by 14-inch snap hoop. You're just going to have to place it. You're going to have to be pretty spot on with your placement. You can also do this. You don't have to do this in such big sections. I just wanted to get it done with sooner than later. So you can do this in smaller sections. Some of the options, looks like they have the 3-inch one comes in the 3x7, the 3x10. You know, so you have other options where you can do this in smaller chunks. If your hoop isn't wide enough and if your hoop isn't long enough, like you could be doing this in a 6x10, but you'd really have to get it in there perfectly. But you could do it in the like a 6x10 and then put in the 3x7, the 3x7, and then you could do 1x7. So you have lots of options. All right, one last section to the green, right past the yellow. There we go. And let's go ahead and stitch. That was better because I feel like I have a little more room. Still pretty close right here. I might move it over even more. Once we're done with this, I am just going to trim right next to the edge. I'm going to trim away all the excess. But I'm telling you, I think this is way easier. Okay, I'm going to take this off. I'm going to change my bobbin right now because I'm so close to running out and I don't want to start stitching and then have it tell me I have no bobbin thread. All right, and we're going to hoop one more time and then we are going to stitch one more time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take my upper hoop off, the top of my hoop off, and I'm going to move this down a little bit. I feel like my batting is going askew. Let me go ahead and see. Let's even out my batting. Started going off center. Okay, well, let's take this and just smooth it down this one too. Just going to take this, smooth this down, pull this back. And we're doing the last 2 sets of 3. We move this over. Move this up. You can see my hoop right there. Okay, I'm going to put my top hoop on. Just going to pull out all the wrinkles. Pull my muslin down both ways and get my wrinkles out here. And that looks good. I'm just going to straighten this piece out. I'm running off of my batting. Okay, I think we're hooped. We can go ahead and do the fine adjusting at the machine. And let's go back to the machine. Okay, so I'm going to slide my hoop on. And my design's already in there. I am going to have to rescan. So that looks good. I'm going to say okay. And let's hit return because we're going to have to move those designs around. This is our main edit page. I'm going to go ahead and hit my camera. Whoops, sorry, off. That's my old scan. I want a new scan. And then we're going to move the design around and make it fit. And that's going to be it. I thought about this for a while because I did the other one probably, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago. And I kept thinking, shoot, can I do this a different way? And remember, this is a pillow. There's going to be something that goes inside it. It's not totally like perfectly straight like a quilt. That's going to be okay too. Okay, so here we go. And here is our scan. These should be around the right, I'm going to close that, the right height. So I'm going to just start moving some of these. See how you need to use the, sometimes you just need to use the move keys to make it super accurate. So I'm going to work on this one, then this one, then this, then this. I'm going to go in order. So rotate. I'm going to go rotate 1 and that looks good. Okay, that one's done. Let's do this one now. First, I'm going to get them lined up on the bottoms. One more. Needs to rotate this way. And I'm going to line up on the top. And I'm going to move it over to the left as far as I can go. See if I can go up one more. I'm moving it this way. Perfect. Let's do this one. That one's way too high. So it's lined up right there. A little short here. Maybe I'll move it down a littlest bit. Let's move it over to the right. I'm not lined up on that side. Rotate one. There we go. Okay, looks good. This one. And I can do this. I can decrease my contrast a little bit. Maybe that looks better to you. Close. Is that easier to see? I'm going to check that top line and the bottom. So you have lots of different points of reference that you can use. I think that little star is the one that's closest to the edge. And that looks good. I'm going to go down a little bit more. And I'm ready to stitch. Okay, last one. Got to make sure you hit embroidery. Oh, so I started thinking, why does that look so wrong? I totally forgot to fast forward. So let me go ahead and rip out the stitches and then we'll start stitching. Okay, I ripped out those stitches that weren't supposed to be there. And now I'm going to fast forward. And remember, we're doing the green, which is right after the yellow. And now we're ready. Let me slide my hoop back on. Much better. I thought, wow, that's really far over to the left. And as soon as it started doing that straight line, I knew something was wrong. Two, three, four. There we go. One, two, three, four. There we go. And then hit start. And I could have maybe made that a little bit smaller. That little corner there will get sewn in. So maybe if you want to make it a little bit, not elongate it quite as much as I did. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and go ahead and hit start. And then we're just going to trim it. and we are quilted. Let's go ahead and trim it. So I'm going to go ahead and unhoop. I'm going to grab my rotary cutter and my ruler. Let's go ahead and take this off. And I'm not worried about this being the straightest line in the world. I'm actually going to trim this side first, just so I can get rid of all this stuff that's dangling off. And let's go ahead and trim it up the sides. Just going to line this up, and I'm going to make it as straight as possible. Just cut maybe 2 at a time. There we go. There's one side. How's that look? Pretty darn slick. Doesn't that look great? Okay, let me just trim this last one down. And all you're going to do is you're going to follow the rest of the instructions. You're going to go ahead and make sure you have that center piece pieced with all the embroideries. And then you are going to sew this onto the center. And I think you should be able to follow my original video showing you how to do the rest. And here we go. That's going to be the top, and here's the bottom. And then these are all going to be in the middle. And those are going to be all sewn together, and it is going to be adorable. If you want to, you could get rid of some of that batting in between, but I'm just going to go ahead and just sew it down. It won't be that bad. And I'll just flip back just like that. So there is option number 2 to do your quilting.